Every year, 300 million tons of plastics are produced for a wide variety of applications. Out of those 300 million tons, about 8 million tons are expected to go to the ocean and to rivers. And an even higher amount is estimated to end up in landfills or in nature on land. We all have those images in our mind of turtles with plastic straws in their nose, or birds being entrapped in fishing nets. And that's a serious problem. But actually, this could be only the tip of the iceberg. There is indeed a microplastic pollution that could be an even bigger threat to human, animals, and plants. And now you're probably wondering, what is this guy doing here telling us about microplastics? I come for a Seed Valley talk. But you might be surprised, because agriculture and the seed industry in particular have an own contribution to the microplastic pollution. But before I get to that, I will explain you a bit about microplastic, what they are, where they come from, and what are the issues with them. And then I will hopefully give you a bit of hope, because we are working on it to make the seed industry microplastic free. But first of all, microplastics, what are they? They are small polymer particles, usually solid, with sizes under 5 millimeter. So very often, they are hardly visible to the human eye. But do not underestimate their size. They can have really disastrous effects on the environment and human health. The first problem with them is that they are persistent. They can take up to several hundred years before completely decomposing or degrading. The second problem is that they are very difficult to recover or isolate at the moment they end up in the environment. So as a result, they keep on accumulating. And nowadays, they are basically present everywhere around us, even in the most remote places. The third problem, and probably the most serious one, is that depending on their chemical nature, microplastics can carry toxic substances or be sources of them. Unfortunately, the effects right now are not well understood on human health and on nature. But to give you an idea, nowadays it is expected that we ingest up to 50,000 microplastic particles in a year. And if we would continue doing that, at the end of our life, we would have ended up consuming up to 20 kilograms of them. So it's really time to turn the tide. But where are microplastics coming from? Now it is well understood. There are two main types of microplastics. On the one hand, you have the secondary microplastics, and those come from big chunks of plastics ending up in nature or in the ocean. You can imagine them as like big reservoirs that are endless sources of those small plastic particles. And those usually come from plastic bottles, packaging, but also farming films or fishing waste that weren't properly disposed of. Another source are the primary microplastics. And those come for a big part from the tire industry. Every time we drive a car, the friction of the tires on the road are creating small rubber particles that go into the air. Also, another culprit are synthetic clothes. Every time we wash our clothes, if they are synthetic, they will emit some microfibers that will basically go down the drain. Another issue are intentionally added microplastics to products. And those are also primary microplastics, like microscopic beads that are added to toothpaste, to detergents, or facial scrubs. And, well, you may think, what can I do to limit this microplastic pollution? Well, there are obvious things that we can do. Drive less our cars, go more often in public transports. If we wash our clothes, we can use a filter to filter out those microplastics. But what do we do about those intentionally added microplastics? I have a degree in chemistry, and I don't even know when I read a package if it contains those microplastics. So how can consumers know that? And this is where the industry has to play a role. The good news is that things are changing, and now a lot of actors in all various of industries are starting replacing those microplastics by microplastic-free alternatives. And one of those sectors is agriculture. Agriculture is now responsible for about 10% of the microplastic pollution, and the seed industry of about 1%. You may not expect it when you drive along a field or walk along it that there are microplastics being released there on a regular basis. However, there are some known sources of them. One of them are sewage sludge. Those are byproducts from the waste water treatment industry. They are rich of organic matters and fertilizers like nitrogen and phosphorus, and for that reason they are applied in fields as a fertilizer or soil improver. The problem is, if the wastewater treatment plant is not equipped with the right filters, then all those microplastics that we have flushed down our drains end up in the field. Another source of those microplastics are fertilizer pellets. Those pellets contain nutrients, and for slow release purposes, to make sure that they are with controlled, they will release in a controlled way in the soil, those fertilizer pellets are coated with polymers. And those polymers are the source of the microplastic. In a similar way, some plant protection products contain microcapsules that also allow a controlled release of some active ingredients. And another source are seed coatings. And yeah, this is my specialty as a researcher. But before I tell you about where microplastics come from in the seed coating, I should explain you why we coat seeds in the first place. Seed coating, also what we call film coating, is a standard agricultural practice nowadays. It consists in applying plant protection products, beneficial microorganisms, nutrients, and biostimulants directly onto the seeds. It's a very precise, well-targeted, and efficient way of applying those beneficial products directly on the seeds to protect and nurture the seeds. After the germination, they will also support the growth of the plant in the early stages of the growth. And this is a very efficient way of plant protection because it allows a reduction of up to 85% of plant protection products. So doing more with less, being able to reach higher yields with an efficient use of resources is a clear contribution to sustainability of seed coatings in the food chain. But we can do better. Like I said, film coats are applied together with beneficial products onto the seeds. They are liquid formulations. When they dry up, they will form a film around the seeds that will help those beneficial products stay where they need to be, onto the seed, and not come off as free dust. And for that, they rely on a crucial component that is called the binder. The binder is a polymer, and as its name indicates, it binds all the components of the product cocktail onto the seeds. You can think of it as some kind of cement. If you would build a house by stacking bricks on top of each other without any cement in between, your whole house will just collapse at the first wind blow. So that's basically what the binder does. It helps the adhesion of all the components of the formulation and make sure that they all stay onto the seeds and at the moment they are sewn to avoid that they come as free-floating dust in the environment. The problem with the binder is that the conventionally used binders are synthetic polymers with a poor biodegradability profile, and yeah, you see what I'm getting at, a microplastic. So at the moment we realized that some of our coatings were containing microplastics, we looked at all our formulations under the loop. And we asked ourselves 3 main questions, looking at the polymers that were containing them. The first one was, is it water soluble? So if you would compare it to a piece of sugar that you would dissolve in water, it would just dissolve readily and not leave any particles behind it. The second question we asked ourselves, is it natural, meaning 100% extracted from nature without any chemical modification? And the third question, is it biodegradable? So meaning that it would be taken up by microorganisms that are present in the soil to convert them into harmless byproducts like biomass, carbon dioxide, and water. And if we could answer yes to one of these 3 questions, then we could confirm that the polymer is then microplastic free. And we looked at all the polymeric components in our coatings, and if we could confirm that, then there would be microplastic free. And that was the case for some of our formulations, unfortunately for some of them not. And this is the nice part for me because I'm a chemist, so I really get excited. And together with our colleagues, we went to the lab, put our lab coat on, safety goggles, and we started playing around with all range of chemistries. I won't bore you with the chemical details, but what I can tell you is that we added those polymers to our formulations. We blended them, applied them onto the seeds, and then tested them according to different parameters that we look at. What are the parameters that matter for us? The most important one is dust. Dust is a direct measurement of how good the adhesion of your coating is on the seed. The lower the dust, the better the adhesion of the coating. We also look at the flow, a simple test looking at how quick seeds are flowing through a funnel. And that's to measure how easily seeds can be coated in an industrial seed coating equipment. What you want to avoid is that seeds will start clogging to each other and diminish the efficiency of the process. And one last parameter, probably the most important one, the germination. We always want to confirm that our coatings do not have any negative impact on the seed germination. And we repeated those tests several times until we could select the most promising candidates and narrow it down to the best performing formulation. And we were successful. We managed to develop new coatings for corn, sunflower, and soon we'll finalize the development of a vegetable coating that is fully microplastic free. But we're not done yet. We still have a lot of work to do, develop other coatings for other crops, but also we're not finished at the moment. We have developed the coating. It is also about implementing it at various actors of the seed industry, our customers. We want to make sure that we understand their needs to translate them into new product developments and help them replace their microplastic containing coatings by microplastic-free ones. So I told you at the middle of this presentation that the seed industry is responsible for about 1% of the microplastic pollution. So yeah, I hope I've convinced you that we are working hard to change that. It won't change the whole world, but hopefully if all the industries start working on it, then this will make this invisible yet huge threat disappear. Thank you.